the trainings of refuge.
Yes, yes. We had one evening talk on the subject, and there is one person who would like to take refuge in December.
Okay, wonderful. That's good.
So we will organize a refuge ceremony in December.
Because then there you already have your daily practice, right? These refuge things. Anyway, shall we do a little bit of preparation, a little bit of meditation and generating a motivation and so forth, yeah? Okay, so first we try to calm down by working with our body. So we check our posture. So we first try to get a conducive posture with our legs. If we sit cross-legged, then we try to make a very stable position. So for example, by having a cushion to get the bottom a little bit higher so that the weight of the body goes onto the knees. This way you have a stable position. And then next you check that you're sitting upright, have a straight back. One of the most important part. And you could think about that you want to have your spine straight like an arrow. So also if you sit on a chair or in somewhere else than on a mat, then you also make sure that you have the spine straight. And then you check your shoulders. If there's any tension there, you can roll the shoulders, you can lift the shoulders and let them fall and so forth to make it sure that there's all relaxed there. And the hands, you put the right hand in the left hand and the thumbs are touching in your lap. And then with regard to the head is slightly tucked in so that your fist is still fitting between your chin and your throat. If you have the head too high up, it will lead to more excitement in the mind. If you have it too low down, then it will make you sleepy. And then with regard to the eyes, the instructions are that you should have them half open and look along the back of the nose to the front. So again, if you have them wide open, then it might be a cause for excitement. If you have them completely closed, it might be a cause for sleepiness. And then you check that all the facial muscles are completely relaxed. There's no tension in the face. That the jaw is relaxed. That the lips are naturally resting on each other, not pressed together. That the teeth are not clenched together, but also naturally resting on each other. And you put the tip of the tongue behind the upper row of the teeth. Now we can check the body if there's any tension, if anything needs to be adjusted. If something needs to be adjusted, we adjust it. We try to have a comfortable and conducive position for this meditation. And then we can get a feel for the place that we are in. We can be aware that we are in a very special place, the Dharma place, a very rare place. In all of Cluj, there might not be others like that. And we are with a very special group of people who are like-minded, also have an interest in spirituality, in practices, maybe Buddhism. So this is a very precious and rare opportunity that we have here. And we can decide for ourselves, this is the best place to be right now for the next hour. And so I decide to keep my mind here in this place, I don't have to plan the future. I don't have to assess the past. I don't have to run to other places in the present. I can be just here. I allow myself to be in this special place, in this special group. If my mind runs off, I will bring it back. And then we can concentrate the mind even further by observing the breath, just how it flows in and out at the nostrils, or maybe if you prefer that, we can also focus on how the navel is going up and down, how the stomach is moving. And we do just that. It's not an exciting object, it's not something entertaining, and that's not the goal. We just want to concentrate the mind. We allow ourselves for some minutes to simply do only that, observe the breath. And so if we want, we can count to 10. Inhaling, exhaling is 1 and so forth. But it's not necessary. We can also just place the mind on the breath. So naturally, all kind of thoughts will appear, but they will also die down by themselves because they're impermanent. So we can just focus on the breath. We don't have to do anything with these thoughts. If we get entangled in the thoughts and distracted and we find out about it, then we just bring the mind back to the breath. We don't make a drama about having been distracted or something. We just gently bring the mind back to the breath. If the mind gets heavy or sleepy, then we imagine a very bright light. And this way we wake ourselves up and then put the mind again on the breath. Let's do this for some minutes. If the mind wanders off, we just gently bring it back. If the mind is sleepy, we wake it up. Now, in this peaceful and concentrated space that we have created in our mind, we want to generate a motivation for our session together. And so first we can check for ourselves, what is our motivation right now? Why did we come here? We can establish very clearly that we came out of our free decision. Nobody was forcing us to come here. So there was a motivation that brought us here. So what is our motivation right now? Why are we here? And then whatever we found as motivation being present right now, then we can actively generate, build a motivation for this session. So we can think along the following lines. I want to get out of this session more knowledge about the potential of my mind, potential of my life. I want to understand more about my problems and about my good sides and how to deal with that and how to improve the situation. I want to learn tools that I can apply in my life. And so in order to do that, I want to participate in this session with all my qualities, with all that I have. I want to be listening, discussing, reflecting, sharing, and so forth. I want to participate and get the most out of this session in order to improve my personality. But then I want to participate in this session not only for that reason, but as I understand how my mind is just the same, like all the minds of everybody around me, and my feelings are feelings just as the feelings of everybody around me. I also want to learn tools and understand more about the mind and the potential of every living person so that I can be of greater benefit to others, be more helpful for others. If there is an occasion to help, that I be able to help. I want to improve my knowledge and I want to improve my skills so I can be more beneficial to others. In order to attain that, achieve that, I want to participate in this session with all I got. And then I can recall that I'm actually not alone with this quest, but the very one that is teaching about my potential and the different ways of dealing with my emotions, improving my feelings, improving my perceptions, improving my happiness, and reducing my sufferings and pains and problems. The Buddha himself is always present and is always holding me with his unconditional love and compassion, and is only wanting to help me. So I go for refuge to the Buddha and his teaching and the community of those who are practicing these teachings in order to achieve these goals that I have of improving myself, manifesting all my potential, and to be increasingly of more benefit to everybody around. And then we can start with the actual session. So now we want to talk about how to set up a daily practice. And so Marius had said to me that this was actually what everybody wanted right away after the summer. And so I said to Marius, a daily practice will be based on refuge, otherwise it's not a Buddhist practice. And refuge will be based on understanding a lot about the Buddhist universe. So therefore I suggested to him that instead of starting with the module on the daily practice, that we have some sessions on Buddhist basics, like what is mind, how is there reincarnation, what is karma, and so forth. So we did that. And now we had 2 sessions on refuge. So to some extent, now we are prepared to talk about a daily practice on that basis. So that's something very essential about Buddhism in general. Buddhism is having many different stages. It is built on respective previous stages of practice. Then you can go to higher stages. So a daily practice, like what is practice in general? What are we talking about when we say practice? It's not to go through the motions of some ritual that doesn't have any meaning for us, but we saw that this is the motions of the ritual, so we do that. Practice is actually about changing our mind. Yeah, right? These things that we have been talking about now in the motivation a little bit, that we understand our potential in our mind, and how we can manifest that. Yeah? That all these very beautiful qualities that are hidden inside of us can become completely manifest for our own benefit and for the benefit of everybody around us. And then the Buddha is describing many structures in our mind that are actually making us unhappy and that are leading to miscommunication with others and to all kinds of problems. So practice means also to weaken this kind of structures and actually find to dissolve them and to replace them by conducive, by helpful, by beautiful structures in the mind, habits in the mind. So practice is that. Like normally what comes to mind when we say practice is meditation. Yeah? So normally people, when they ask a Buddhist monk about give me a practice, they're expecting a meditation, and with meditation they probably mean to sit down and be completely silent and watch the breath. I don't know, what something like that. Yeah. So the actual word in Tibetan for meditation is actually gom, and gom has more a connection to the concept of familiarization, to get familiar with something. Yeah? So you're training yourself to get familiar with positive states of mind, yeah? With positive habits. You're generating positive habits. Sometimes I say that the Buddha is enlightened out of habit. Yeah, the Buddha was practicing for many, many eons and got simply better. Each session that he did, he got better in these positive states of mind that he was training himself in. And then finally, in the last session, he became enlightened. Yeah? He simply built up the habit of love and compassion. He simply built up the habit of patience. He built up the habit of wisdom, of not following appearances that he understands that they are not referring to reality, kind of projections or something. He built up the habit of not following projections. He built up the habit to take the mind as the principal phenomenon in your life, as the most important thing in your life. He built up the habit of taking others as important than himself, and then even the habit of seeing them as more important than yourself, and so forth. Yeah. So all of this the Buddha achieved by way of familiarizing himself with these kind of thoughts again and again. So first he understood how to do this familiarization, and then he engaged with what is called joyous effort again and again into this kind of meditations or familiarizations. And so that's the whole thing about Buddhism altogether. The thing is that if you do on a regular basis a practice, a meditation, a familiarization, then you will get better at this all the time. And so that's very, very, very essential. The Master Shantideva said there's nothing that doesn't get easier with familiarization. And so even the most difficult teaching of the Buddha can be achieved by way of starting somewhere and then going in appropriate steps and approaching and approximating yourself closer and closer. And finally, you can have these results of great CDs or great realizations and so forth. Yeah, so all of this comes out of the power of familiarization. And that's what meditation is about. So we need to start somewhere, of course. And we're not going to start by doing Tumo practice somewhere in Tibet in a cave. Yeah, we're going to start here, right where we are, in the city where we are, with some first steps of practice. And so that's, I guess, what we talk about when we mean a daily practice. Yeah? So how to have some connection with the teachings, how to bring the teachings into our life. And so the daily practice will be having two settings. The one setting is that you might have where you live a corner where you have a meditation mat and a cushion and maybe even a little altar and I don't know what. And then there you're sitting down and do, let's say, a morning practice. Or maybe you do a practice in the evening when you come home and so forth. So that's the one setting. You could call this, if you like, a formal setting. But then actual practice and daily practice has to happen all through our day. Yeah, the actual practice is happening when we are communicating with somebody else. The actual practice is working in the job. The actual practice is happening in the commuting in the public transport, or maybe we go with our own car, so we're in the traffic jam or something. So right there is the practice in that situation. Or when we go shopping, or all the time. And maybe in the end, this is even the more important practice. But in order for this practice in daily life to be successful, you need to do some preparation on the cushion. And then later on, of course, there's also other practices which you will only do on the cushion, like, let's say, sadhanas or calm abiding meditation and so forth. So I think what we need to talk about here, or what this module is about, is how to set up one of these formal meditations or practices at home. And again, I want to emphasize that this would be a preparation for how you then lead your life outside home, in interaction with others. So such kind of daily practice could be a morning session and it could be an evening session. Yeah? So that's what I already said. And it's probably good to have both of those. The morning session could be something that can flavor the whole day. Yeah, by starting the morning in a way of becoming very aware, concentrated, generating loving and compassionate thoughts for the people that you're going to meet in this day. Maybe remembering the benefits of ethics and so forth, and deciding clearly to have an ethical day, to not harm others and so forth. Maybe even wanting to benefit others and so forth. So by generating these kind of attitudes or motivations in the morning, then when you then go out into your daily life, then here you can this might influence your interaction with others. So it might either indeed change how you interact with others, how you communicate with others, or at least it might make you aware in hindsight how this just worked out, how this situation just worked out. That you might have a certain, let's say, a Buddhist outlook on how you interacted with others and so forth, and learn something from that. And then at the end of the day, what is important is to maybe assess the day, how the day was going, to learn the most of the experiences of that day, and then also there will be something about purification. Okay? If things didn't go well, or some things didn't go well in the day, because there will always be a mix. There will be some things in the day that go very well, and other things that didn't go so well. So both of them we need to acknowledge. So that means with things that didn't go so well, we need to be honest to ourselves without kind of beating ourselves, but simply say like, okay, so this is something that was not useful in my spiritual development, but it happened anyway. It's no surprise that it happened. I'm in samsara, so there is problems going on. And then you can deal with that by purifying that. So we will talk about that. And then the other thing is also to be very clear that other things went very well. Yet you did have good interactions with others, that you were helping in this way or another way other beings in their situation, in their problem, and so forth. And then to rejoice in that at the end of the day, to say like, I did do some spiritual things today, I did some good things today, to rejoice in that. And then on the basis of the teachings on karma, all these positive things are leaving what is called virtue in our mind, positive karma, you could say, and then we would dedicate that. Yeah, so that's also a practice at the end of the day. So let's look into that a little bit. Let's say you do a morning session. Any session, I would strongly suggest you would pretty much start in the same way that we are just started this very session here. Yeah, so let's say you sit down on your meditation cushion. Actually, they would talk about preliminaries, that you would clean the place a little bit before you use the meditation room or meditation corner that you have. You might set up some offerings and so forth. So the actual meditation should start by this, that you go through this body posture to make a physical basis for your session, and then you concentrate your mind. And when you have this the body and the mind prepared in this way, then you generate a motivation. And that's really one of the most essential things of the whole day, that you generate this motivation. You can generate a motivation for that session, but actually you can already generate that very same motivation for the whole day. And that will be the main thing of that session. So, of course, again, this comes full circle round to the topic of knowing more about Buddhism. Yes, the more you know about Buddhism, the more you know about the different motivations that you can have within Buddhism. And for example, the more you understand about the so-called topic of suffering, the more you can generate a motivation to be free of suffering. The more you understand about samsara, the more you can generate a motivation to be free of samsara. And also, the more you understand about samsara, the more you can generate a motivation of love and compassion, that all beings may be free of samsara, and so forth. The more you understand your own potential for complete enlightenment, the more you can actually, in a strong way and in a heartfelt way, generate a motivation that I want to become enlightened. I want to become enlightened, therefore I'm going to lead my day in this way. And in this way, you prepare yourself for the whole day by meditating on the motivation. So the motivations in Buddhism are coming from what is called the so-called three scopes. So we talk about that there's practitioners of a so-called small scope, of a middle scope, and of a great scope. So the practitioners of the small scope, they have as a motivation on the basis of having understood that they're going to die, they can die any moment, that all of their experiences are colored and are produced by karma and the different mental states. So on that basis, this person also understanding that there will be a future rebirth and these rebirth of ripenings of karma. So then that person will be very interested in generating the causes for having a good rebirth in the future. So this person will especially go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha to get the practices or to get the support for a practice of actually influencing the process of death. And so what the Buddha has to say in this area is especially the practice of ethics. Ethics, keeping ethical behavior is the major factor for gaining a good rebirth. And so that's especially in a nutshell talking about not harming others, neither by your physical actions, nor by your verbal actions, not even in your mind, not even by thoughts. And so that's already a strong practice. So you could generate this motivation in the morning. Today, I'm going to practice my spirituality of understanding rebirth and samsara such that I will be an ethical person today. I will not mess up my mind. I will not mess up my karma and so forth by following all kind of destructive thoughts. I will check the patterns that I use in my speech so that I will not harm others in the way I speak. If I find patterns during the day that are harmful for others or which are kind of just expressing my arrogance, or I want to be superior to them, or I want to kind of suppress them in the way that I'm speaking, like let's say aggressive or something, then I will change that. I will understand that I'm harming others with my speech right now. I'm going to abstain from that because that's a negative action leading to a low rebirth. I don't want to go to a low rebirth. I'm going to learn ways of speaking so it is pleasant to others, it is supportive for others, it is clear, and so forth. Yeah. So I'm just saying this is a motivation to have for the day. I'm going to observe. I'm going to be aware how I speak. I'm going to be observe even how I speak with my gestures, with my facial expression, how I come across, what am I doing, and in that, do I harm others by that? Am I trying to solve the situation by suppressing others, by being aggressive to others, and so forth? So having this clear motivation in the morning, I'm gonna check my actions. That karma actually means action in Sanskrit. So I want to check my karma. What actions am I performing during the day? So that would be kind of the motivation of a being of the small scope. And this is something that wouldn't come about for us easily. It can be an intellectual thought. But in this morning session, you could generate such an attitude on a deeper felt level. And this might then influence your whole day. Yeah? So actually, the Dalai Lama is saying that this first motivation is not yet a Buddhist motivation. Yeah, the Buddhism or the Buddha himself is not interested in people simply getting higher rebirths. He's actually interested in liberating beings from all rebirth. He wants to get them out of samsara into nirvana. So that's a very, very high spiritual goal. And it is the motivation of the middling scope. Yeah? So you would have the morning session, you would calm yourself down, you sit there in the same way that we started this session, and then you try to go through whatever knowledge you have about your state of being in samsara, and the dissatisfactory aspect of that, even the suffering aspect of that, and that you have the potential to get liberated from that. And you want to lead that day in a virtuous way. You want to do actions on that day in a virtuous way, in a non-harmful way, in a conducive way, so that you are able to do steps towards liberation. So then in that context, because getting liberated from samsara will not happen within this life, but is a long-term project, within that, then the Dalai Lama would say, therefore, you need to aim at good rebirth, at Dharma rebirth, that you're again born as a human being that has access to Dharma teachings, that is living in some kind of peace and has access to some kind of resources so it can practice and so forth. So therefore, within that bigger motivation to get liberated from samsara, you have the motivation to get a good rebirth, which is mainly coming down to that you want to live an ethical day. Yeah. So that's my point is this, that the morning practice would be about especially to generate this kind of attitudes. Yeah. To generate the attitude of wanting to live an ethical day. You generate the attitude of like the awareness, let's say, that you are actually practicing a spirituality. So you have a spiritual goal, you have a meaning in your life which is very far reaching. And not only that, but you have a very special support for all of this. You have the Buddha, his teaching, and the community of practitioners. Yeah, so an essential part will therefore be also to go for refuge. Yeah, the very state of mind that we have been talking in the last sessions, and if I understand right, that when Wilgenin was also talking about in some detail. So there's a very crucial topic, the topic of going for refuge. So just to be clear, going for refuge does not mean that you necessarily kind of go to a lama or a geshe or something like this and go through a ceremony. This is not necessarily the case. Refuge means that you are generating a state of mind, an attitude of I have spiritual goals. They will not be easy to attain. It is not easy to attain mastery over death, so that you are in charge of that. There's going to be a good rebirth. It's not easy. It's a real spiritual path. It is definitely not easy to get liberated out of samsara, and it is not easy to get completely enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings. So because you have these aspirations, and you have heartfelt these aspirations, you're looking for support from spiritual beings that are very advanced and that are completely, without any conditions, willing to support you in your personal spiritual quest. So that's what refuge is coming down to. Yeah, in a positive way, I'm saying this in a positive way, that you're having spiritual goals, spiritual yearnings, spiritual projects, and you're going for support. That's the refuge. The refuge is support in your project. Yeah. So as we said in the previous sessions, the technical way of expressing this is a bit more harsh, which is that you're having a fear, that you are afraid of what would happen if you don't practice spirituality. So you have an understanding how this rebirth being shaped by actions includes that you could take rebirth on the basis of having harmed others, having been unethical, being harmful to others, being aggressive to others, being in a state of putting other people down and so forth, that this can have a rebirth outcome in the so-called lower realms, where the sufferings are by far more than the peaceful states or the happy states. There might be even states where there's only suffering. And so you don't want to go there. So out of fear to be that the endless potential of the mind might create something like this in your next life, therefore you go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Therefore you want to get a support in your very personally felt quest to avoid this kind of development in your mind. Yeah, so that kind of support. Or out of fear of the sufferings of samsara and all these dissatisfactory states within samsara, even as a human being, even as what is called a god, even if you would take this kind of aspects. So being afraid of being lost in this kind of endless rebirth within samsara, which are all dissatisfactory and they're all ending in death. So out of fear of being lost in this state forever, you go for support to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, for your spiritual quest to break free from that, to break free from birth and death and rebirth and redeath and so forth. Yeah, so that's the refuge of the middle school. And then out of fear of not becoming enlightened, not having all the good qualities of a Buddha, and therefore not being able to help all the people, all the beings in samsara, all these mothers that are as much connected to you like the mother of this life, which includes that you are afraid of not being able to help the mother of this life, for example. So therefore, being afraid not to have the qualities of a Buddha, by which you could help all these people. Therefore, you go for support, for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha in order to have the spiritual quest supported, the spiritual quest to become completely enlightened as is your potential. Become a completely enlightened Buddha as is your potential. Yeah, so this is how refuge is actually working. So we talk about these two causes of refuge, which is on the one hand a certain kind of fear, and on the other hand an appreciation of the good qualities of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha in the spiritual sense, how much support we can get there. So again, when we talk about motivation or fear in this case, of the small scope being, this person is only, which is actually a joke because it's already a vast vision, is only interested in getting a good rebirth again in the future. So His Holiness says this is in itself not a Buddhist goal. But what is a Buddhist goal is to get a good rebirth in the future in order to be continuously able to practice the Dharma for high goals like liberation, or, as we speak about the Mahayana here in Tibetan Buddhism, for complete enlightenment, actually. Yeah. So all these kind of thoughts you could include in a morning session, yeah, in order to generate a motivation about how you want to lead your life today. And one thing that is, of course, very, very useful here is to be aware that this might very well be your last day. And this might be very well your last chance, because you don't know what's going to happen in the next life, if you're going to meet Buddhism or not. But right now, today, you have this opportunity to practice. Today, you have the opportunity to check how you speak with others, how you interact physically with others, how you think about others or about yourself and so forth. Yeah. So today, you are able to practice ethical discipline. You can restrain yourself, you can refrain from negative acts with the body, with the speech, with your thoughts. You can engage in positive acts, supporting others, again, physically, verbally, or in your thoughts and so forth. So with this attitude, today, this day, which might be very much my last day, I'm going to use in the fullest for my spiritual projects of breaking free from samsara and getting completely enlightened for the sake of all human beings. And the very basic practice that I'm going to do today is that I'm going to observe ethical behavior. I'm going to abstain from harming others. So that's the very basic thing. Then, of course, you can go much further with that. Yeah, you can think about that. Therefore, today I will avoid to get angry with anybody. So then here you need to bring together all your knowledge that you have gotten from many different sessions, or maybe have read books, or you have discussed with other people in the center how you practice patience, how you abstain from anger, actually. So there's a lot of instruction on this. So whatever Dharma knowledge you have, you decide clearly, today I'm going to put them into practice. This day is going to be utterly meaningful. I'm going to have this ethical behavior. I'm going to be supportive to others. I'm going to counteract arrogance. I'm going to counteract anger. I'm going to counteract desire, and so forth. And so all of this you want to establish as a motivation here in this morning session, because if this is strongly generated in the morning, it can flavor the whole day. So then this morning session would be very, very important. Like, for example, if you recall in the morning the bigger spiritual framework that your life is embedded in, then it will color all your actions of the day. Yeah, everything will be seen out of a different perspective. Yeah, whatever is happening, maybe something unpleasant is happening. If you keep the bigger perspective that you have generated during the morning session, yeah, of the spiritual universe that the Buddha is talking about, then many unpleasant situations will actually appear in comparison rather small and unimportant. And if you have that awareness of how this is just a very fleeting situation, just short-lived, doesn't matter much, then it will be very easy to be patient with this unpleasant situation, for example. So that's something central in for this morning session, to generate this kind of motivation in order to flavor the whole day, to bring about certain resolutions on how you're going to live this day, and so forth. So of course, the biggest motivation in Buddhism is the Mahayana motivation, where you are aiming at helping everybody, all sentient beings, including animals and all kind of beings in all kind of types of rebirth and so forth. And in order to do so, you need to become a completely enlightened Buddha. You understand that you have Buddha potential. Yeah, there is nothing about you that is excluding you from becoming a Buddha. And there's nothing about the Buddha that makes him kind of especially holy or something like that, but he was once exactly like us. This is very essential in Buddhism. In other religions, the highest being is of a completely different category, has always been loving compassion, has always been omniscient and so forth, has created the world, maybe, I don't know what, completely different being. In Buddhism, the highest being, the omniscient one, the loving one, the compassionate one, the one who's unconditionally interested in us and supportive of us, has become like that, has not always been like that. He, just like us, had Buddha potential, but different from us, he has manifested his Buddha potential by practice, by a daily practice. So being aware that we all have this Buddha potential, and it is indeed simply a question of practice, of, as I said, familiarization, that we actually gain this state of enlightenment, of complete Buddhahood, and therefore the state in which we can be most beneficial to others. So being aware, bringing to mind in the morning session your own Buddha potential, then actually establishing that you are aiming at becoming such a completely enlightened Buddha for the sake of everybody around you. You will be aware that this is going to be a long-term project, but today you're going to make some steps into this direction. So that's the motivation of the day. Today I'm going to abstain from harming others. Today I try to be as loving and compassionate towards others, as helpful and beneficial to others as possible, as a step to me actually becoming completely enlightened, so I can help everybody, not just in the little ways I can do even now, but in a very vast and almost like cosmic way. So having this established, that actually you try to live your life in order to become completely enlightened, then again, this will influence all the actions during your day. You have again a bigger framework for all the situations that you are encountering. So again, many things might be trifling, and many unpleasant things or problems will be appear very small in comparison to this huge project or the bigger scheme of things. And you will be more easily patient with them, or accept certain things without getting angry and so forth. And on the other hand, you might also be able to go out of your way in helping others, and to do the extra mile, to do that extra activity, to be more beneficial to others, because that's on your mind from the morning session. So that's kind of what I wanted to emphasize tonight about how the morning session is something that should radiate out into the day. There is not that much benefit from sitting at home for half an hour, reciting some mantras or some text, and then you go out and the first person that you meet, you explode on in anger because that person gave you a funny look. That's just a joke. What was the point of sitting in the morning? So that's really the thing. The thing is that the session on the cushion needs to prepare you for the actual interactions with other people, for the actual interaction actually with your own mind. Yeah, you prepare yourself to be aware during the day what's going on in my mind, and you are taking all your understanding of Buddhism to be able to assess what is going on in my mind right now is actually harmful. I'm going to counteract that. Or what is going on in my mind is actually helpful. So I want to support that. I want to have this longer going, or I want to strengthen that maybe. So that's good. I want to do, that's what I did just now, very wonderful. I want to do this more often. Yeah, so an awareness, bringing to mind your knowledge about what is useful, what is not useful, what is virtuous, what is not virtuous, and so forth. Yeah. So that's what the morning session can do. Otherwise, you just come out of your sleep. You had all kind of dreams, probably all kind of confused dreams. The mind is confused. You have difficulties to wake up. Maybe you grab a coffee or something, so you try to survive to the breakfast, and then you go out on the street. Don't do this to people. Prepare your mind before you go out and meet them. You know. So yeah, so that's kind of the morning session, I would say. The morning session has to do with bringing back to mind the bigger spiritual picture, which includes to be aware of your own potential, and with that awareness then go into the day. It also includes to be aware that you have amazing spiritual support from the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And the Buddha also is not one Buddha, but there is myriads of Buddhas. So there's a whole spiritual dimension that is all the time intent to be beneficial to you. Is all the time wanting to help, is all the time loving and compassionate. And again, unconditional, whatever you did just a second before. You can always tap into this. So in the morning, you can remind yourself of that. And again, this will flavor the day, maybe to the point that even during the day, sometimes you might remember that there is this support. So you might have a difficult situation, and in that difficult situation, you might remember, but I have the support of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. For example, it is if you have this refuge established in the morning and that is flavoring your day, how can you ever feel lonely? You are always together with myriads, unbelievable numbers of beings that are having unconditional love and compassion for you. Then, of course, if you understand the teachings about love and compassion themselves and about bodhicitta, you can also not be lonely because you're living in a city of, I don't know how many people living in Cluj, maybe 100,000, I don't know, 20,000, I don't know. How many are you?
500,000.
500,000. This is more than Toulouse. That's amazing. So 500,000 people, all these people have been living with you through thousands and myriads and unbelievable amounts of lives. You had all kind of relations with them. You just have to step right up through this door here in the back that I see here. And out there is the people that you have been sharing many, many lives. How can you feel alone? You're completely connected with everybody. So all of this is benefits of bringing this back in the morning session, so that you have a different outlook on the people that you meet, that you have clear that your life has meaning, that you have clear what kind of potential you are having while you're going out there, what is virtue, what is non-virtue, that you have the capacity to do good, that you have good sides, and that you can use them today for the sake of others, that you have negative sides, no problem. Everybody has negative sides. You can admit this to yourself, no problem, and you can work with them. And this is going to be that wonderful day where you're going to diminish these negative sides. Very nice. So you set up a certain refuge, a certain motivation, and then you go into the day. Yeah. I think that's the main thing about the morning practice, really. And then you go to the day and you try to practice all through the day. And then in the evening you come back. And I guess most people, when they come home, let's say from work or from studies or from whatever, they might be kind of exhausted or tired or something like that. And what the mind does, what our samsaric mind does, it is grasping for some kind of a relaxation or distraction or immediate kick of happiness right here, right now. So one thing is the television, another thing is the fridge, the refrigerator, what's available there and so forth. Try meditation. You know, come home and maybe say, first I'm going to take 20 minutes quality time for myself. I can watch television later. It's not running away, you know, it's pretty fixed there. So you could first kind of just kind of gather your thoughts, calm down, be with yourself. Like I think really like this, what we do here in the beginning of the sessions always, this checking the body posture is actually a very powerful way of connecting with yourself. Yeah, so let's say you come exhausted from work or from out there, you come home, then just to sit down and go through the body posture is something that's going to calm you down right there. And it's going to connect you with yourself, then do some breathing and so forth. Yeah, so already that will calm you down and will relax you already there. And actually, our Geshe is often pointing out to us that all the Dharma thoughts, all the Dharma reflections and meditations are actually very positive thoughts. So they're actually very nourishing, yeah, in comparison to reading a book on history, or all kind of wars or all kind of other stuff. Yeah, that's going to probably rather disturbing for the mind, for example, or watching television. I know is probably also disturbing for the mind. But if you do some Dharma thoughts, some meditation, so it's actually nourishing the mind. It's something positive. It's again connecting you with your potential. So it's very likely that during the day we got a little bit carried away by things, and we maybe forgot a little bit about our potential. We forgot about our own mind and stuff like that, and our feelings. So to reconnect with that. So that's just a suggestion when you come home to prepare yourself for the rest of the evening by first of all coming back to yourself, to your body, and to your mind, and to your feelings. So that's not really the evening session. Yeah? So what we're talking about here is a daily practice. So what you do in the evening. In the evening, you would take some time off for yourself in order to reflect how this day worked out. And so one thing that I want to say is that all this thing about practice and so forth is something very, very intimate. It's something very private, very, very close to yourself. It's going to be about your emotions. It's going to be your behavior and so forth. So what is essential is to be honest with yourself. And I think we can afford to be honest with ourselves because we don't have to share any of that, what we discover there when we look inside. It is very, very private and very, very intimate. Yeah, so we have an intimate session with ourselves and we check how did the day go. And again, it's not about being self-defeating and only finding bad things. It is about being honest. This and this went wrong and this went good. Yeah, so that's both to be appreciated or both to be acknowledged. Yeah, so the respective practices in Buddhism here are called purification with regard to things that went wrong. Yeah, you can purify your mind, you can work with that, you can address that. You can say, this and this happened. And because it was an action, this and this happened means I did this and this in my thoughts, with my speech, with my gestures, physically maybe, and so forth. I did that. So that was an action. Actions leave karmic imprints. You want to purify this karmic imprints. Then other things went very well. So these are good to acknowledge. I did that and that. I have qualities. I did benefit somebody else. I can practice patience. Yeah, maybe it was short, maybe it was not very strong, but it happened. Yeah. So to acknowledge to yourself that you have these things going on, love and compassion, and to some extent we all have that already. So then here the practice that is done together with that is called rejoicing. Yeah, to actually be joyful about that we did that. To really say, like, it's nothing about to be getting puffed up or being super proud that you were a little bit of patient, yeah. But nevertheless, to acknowledge to yourself, I can do things. Very important. Very important. It's very important because once you start to to dig in the dirt, as they say, once you start to dig in your mind, you might find a lot of things that are not going well. So then it is very, very important to not be kind of overwhelmed by that and then grasp at that and say like, oh, look, that's what I am. I'm a very negative person. Not like that. But to always do this together with and balance this with also admitting to yourself that you have good sides. This and this went well. So that's the practice of rejoicing from the point of view of your own actions. So actually the practice of rejoicing goes much further. It goes into rejoicing into the good actions of others. It goes into the rejoicing in the good actions of high practitioners like yogis and lamas and so forth. It goes into rejoicing into the actions of the founding fathers like Lama Tsongkhapa and so forth, and the Buddha himself and all the Buddhas. Yeah, so you have that. Rejoicing, which is also very powerful because this is something that is then kind of generating an appreciation for realizations in you and a longing for realization. That's also very important. And it makes you also feel close to those people who practice in this way or to the Buddha, for example, and so forth. But one part of the rejoicing is to rejoice in whatever small things you did well. It's very important. So we have in Buddhism, we have a practice which is called the 7 limbs. And so this practice of the 7 limbs contains the following practices. It's a praise for or paying homage to Buddhas and gurus and so forth. Then you have making offerings. Then you have a confession of negative deeds. Then you have rejoicing. Then you have requesting to teach. Then you have requesting not to die and go into parinirvana, not to leave us alone. And finally, you have dedication. So this is the 7. And they come in different prayers. They come in a different order. But one order is always the same. First, you have confession, where you admit to negativities. And then you have rejoicing. So you always counteract this kind of dwelling on your negative sides by also dwelling on your positive sides. So very important. So this last session of the day would be about that. You're analyzing your day. How did it go? So in order to analyze your day, how did it go, you have to have some knowledge about what is virtue, what is not virtue. You have to understand what is ethics, what is unethical, what is a good behavior, a wrong behavior, a correct behavior, incorrect behavior, and so forth. Yeah. So again, very essential to actually study about these topics. On the basis of your understanding, you go through the day. How did it go today? How did my communication go with others? How did I deal with my boss? How did I don't know, if you're studying, how did I deal with my colleagues and so forth? How were the interactions in the shop and with my family? I don't know what, yeah. And then to simply, again, coming back to the honesty, telling yourself, so that actually was probably rather harmful. I could see this from the reaction of the other person. Or I could understand that this was harmful because I can see how my own mind got very rough and my own mind got very disturbed. So it was probably an afflicted state. So I don't want to go there. Neither do I want to harm others, nor do I want to harm myself by getting into coarse states of mind, by starting a fire of anger or of desire or something inside myself. I don't want to burn myself. So all of this, I admit to myself that here, this and this happened. I did harm somebody else and I did harm myself, and I don't want to do this again. Yeah? So you deal with that. You're admitting to yourself whatever negative things happened, and from the point of view of the positive things, also you say to yourself, here was helpful to somebody else. Here I had a moment of peace. Maybe I had a moment of peace in a difficult situation. I stayed calm, I stayed patient, and so forth. Here I gave something away, maybe even something that I normally wouldn't give away. So that's nice, that's good. There was some generosity here, some freedom, freedom in my mind to share with somebody else, to connect with somebody else by giving something. Yeah? I had this freedom today in my mind. That was wonderful. Instead of kind of clinging to my possession or to my time, yeah, for example, I was able to share this with somebody else. That was a good thing. Yeah, so to be aware of that. And then the outcome of being aware of negative things is that you decide, I want to guard myself tomorrow against this kind of behavior. I want to change that. I want to diminish this at least, and I want to, if I can, I want to give it up tomorrow. And on the positive side, this kind of positive things I want to do more often, and I want to actually strengthen them. Right? That I have a habit there to, with regard to positive patterns, that becomes stronger and stronger. That it also becomes more natural. It becomes more. It becomes. It manifests more often, simply due to being second nature. Yeah. So coming back to the meaning of meditation, which is familiarization. I want to familiarize myself with the positive deeds I do to get stronger. And I also want to familiarize myself with an attitude to restrain myself from negative things, from actions that would be harmful to others. So there is a lot to be said about this, especially about the purification. Maybe I say this next time. Just one thing, the way to then end the day, to end the session, you can do this also with the morning session already, actually, but especially the session at night, you would do what is called a dedication. Yeah. So dedication is also something that we're going to do tonight at the end of the session. Maybe we did this already before in other sessions. So here the idea is that all over the day, we did all kind of positive things. We were generating certain Dharma attitudes, we were helping others and so forth. And again, all of this generated virtue, generated a karmic residue in our continuum that is still with us, although the action itself is completely over. Yeah, of course, the situation is long gone. But there is a residue in our mind, which is called a karmic imprint. And here we talk about the virtuous imprints, the positive things, those that have the power to generate good rebirth, those who have the power to generate joy and peace in the mind. So these virtues, or white karmas it's called, or virtuous imprints and so forth, will only ripen into joy or into happiness. They cannot, by their nature, ripen into suffering. But there's many types of happiness. Yeah? There's a happiness of enjoying an ice cream. And there is a happiness of being liberated from samsara, which is quite different. So what dedication is doing, it is taking this, let's say, substance, this white karma, this virtuous karma, and is sending it to a vast destination, so that it doesn't just ripen into some nice sunset or some nice experience of a dinner or something like that, but that it is actually going into a vast collection of virtuous karmas that are necessary to attain high goals. So in dedication, you would dedicate for a good Dharma rebirth, you would dedicate for liberation from samsara, you would dedicate into becoming completely enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings. So that's the major dedication. Yeah? You are aware of possessing this kind of, let's say, positive energy, and you're also aware of that you created that. It is coming out of your mind, and you can seal it. You can seal it such where it has to go. You can send it to a certain destination. And out of this knowledge about your power to deal with your inner processes, you dedicate it to a higher spiritual goal. So that's one thing. The other thing is that you can also dedicate your virtues to more immediate things, like if you know people that are sick, if you are people who have a kind of a mental distress or something like this, or maybe depressed, or I don't know what, something. Anyway, somebody in need, you can dedicate for that. You can make a wishing prayer. May that person be healed. May this person no longer be sad, and so forth. Yeah? Or even if somebody is in the death process or in the dying process, may this person have no pain in this process, may have a peaceful death, and so forth. You can dedicate it to world peace. You can say, like, may this planet be more harmonious, may there be less hate on the planet, and so forth. Yeah? All of that is also very, very powerful, and is itself a practice. So by this kind of dedication of virtue, you're accumulating virtue, which you can dedicate. So anyways, just this point of that the last thing of the day should be this dedication of all your positive activities that you did. So again, the evening session would be characterized by being aware of what happened that day, to counteract negative acts, which are happening all the time. There's no surprise if we have ended up in negative acts. To react to that by purifying that. So we will talk about this more next time. And with regard to positive things, to rejoice in that and to generate an attitude that you want to strengthen these things. You want to do this more often and you want to do this more strongly and make it second nature. And then finally, to dedicate the virtue of that day to a higher spiritual goal. And in this way, you could finish off your day with this kind of session. If you, after that, go to sleep, it is even said that this will influence your dreams, such that even in your dreams you might do virtuous things. So then even the time of your sleep will be used for Dharma and for personal development. And that's just amazing. There was something else I wanted to say. Yeah. So in this way, I have talked a little bit about sessions, like a morning session and an evening session, and what this is mainly about. Of course, we have texts and prayers and small recitation practices that you can do, which include all of this. Yeah? There is this motivation inside of these practices. There is going for refuge inside of that. There is these seven limbs that I was talking about, and there's dedication in the end. So that's what we normally do. We use one of these kind of practice texts in order to follow this kind of sequence to develop this respective positive states, yeah, as an aid for our practice. So that's I don't know how much of that is available to you there. I guess in English it should be even available by download or something like that. So I guess you have access to that. Yeah, like for example, Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga or something like this. This has all these the Ganden Lagyema. Yeah, this has all these practices inside and so forth. So you can use that. So while this is the case that we have these practices and we would deal with motivations and refuge and in the evening purification and so forth, dedication, I also try to weave in this presentation tonight how all of this is very much dependent on how much understanding we have of all these topics. How much knowledge and understanding we have about suffering, samsara, liberation, our own potential to become enlightened, our potential to become liberated, how we are connected with other sentient beings, how patience is practiced, what the negative sides of anger are, what attachment is, what it does to us. So all this comes not from reciting a text. This is not coming from doing a meditation or breathing or something. It comes solely from studying. So I would strongly recommend, if you want to engage into a daily practice, to also make some space to at least read something for 15 minutes or half an hour. Yeah, so study is really, really essential to get anywhere. Otherwise, you're just going to parrot words. I mean, it's not as bad, but you won't get that much with your practice. You need to have this foundation of knowledge. And some of the things are difficult to take in, like when you go into the section on suffering of samsara, it's quite full on. So that's something again to meditate on. Yeah. So to first of all, you need to have some knowledge about these topics, and then you go into a meditative state where you prepare your mind, like concentrate the mind, and so forth, and then you meditate on these topics. But again, you cannot meditate on these topics without having first studied about it. Again, so my point is simply that if you have access to some kind of a short text on Lamrim or something like this, or some book that makes sense, I'm not talking about like a 5-volume Lamrim commentary or something like that, but something that is doable for you. This is, you yourself must evaluate what is doable for you. Then if you could read every day, like, I know, for half an hour, then this would be very good. And you have no stress there. It's not that within a month you have to finish the book. You can also reread sections and so on, and go back and forth. And you can also put the book down and reflect on what you were just reading and so forth. But anyway, this is very essential. Yeah? So if it's possible by any means, on the one hand, set a motivation for the day, evaluate the day in the end of the day, but also try to bring in some time for reading and gaining more understanding. Right? I think that's all I have for tonight. We have some 9 minutes left. If anybody has any comment or question on this, you would be very, very welcome.
About the dedication part. It's good to dedicate for others, you said.
What was that about dedication for others?
You said it's good to dedicate for others.
Yes.
To give the positive karma to others.
Yes.
How does this exactly work? What is the mechanism? What we are developing there?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. As you use the word exactly, I don't know how it works exactly, but the general idea is this. Like it is similar with regard to the pujas that are done. Yeah. So, for example, here in Nalanda we do pujas, and in Gandhi Tripungsera and the great monasteries in India they do pujas and so forth. So, what's the point of that? Yeah. So they do puja and then they dedicate for the sponsor, for example. So for example, here in Nalanda we have almost every weekend we have a puja of Medicine Buddha, which of course is something that people who are sick are referring to. And then we have a Tara Puja, which is for dispelling obstacles. Also, many people have interest in that. So they would connect with that somehow. So the point is that then the monks would perform this puja in that they would accumulate virtue and then they would dedicate it to that person. Actually, to all sentient beings, but also specifically to this person. The name would be read out and so forth. So that's similar to ourselves having a practice during the day, accumulating virtue and then dedicating. So if I understand this right, it is not that your virtue is transferred to the other person. And also, when the monks here are performing this Medicine Buddha Puja, it is not that the monk, the merits that the monks gained through this puja are transferred to this other person, so that the monks don't have the merit anymore and the person has it. Yeah. So the idea is this. For example, when we take a person who is sick in hospital and then somebody organizes this Medicine Buddha Puja, if this person, due to previous actions, has the karma for healing, then this puja and dedication can help to activate that karma that this person has. If this person has no karma for healing, we can do puja as much as we want, nothing will happen. Yeah. So similar is probably with regard to the dedication that we speak in general. Yeah. So again, if we dedicate for a person that is sick, if there's simply nothing to be done, and the Buddhas would be aware that there's nothing to be done about the sickness, there's no karma for healing, there's no condition for healing and so forth, then our prayers won't help. But if there is something like that there, then there can be this benefit from our dedication. So again, it's not that our virtue is leaving us and is kind of flying over to the other person and is doing something over there, but it is that we are helping the other person to activate karma that is there but has not been activated yet. So with regard to this karma thing, there is people who are suffering from the same sickness and they're administered the same medicine, and the one person is healed and the other one is not. This is clearly happening all the time in all the different hospitals in the world. Must be happening in Romania as well. So there might be something to be said about this, that somebody needs to have the karma to be healed. Yeah. So on the one hand, this person would have a negative karma likely to get sick or injured in the first place, but then there can be a positive karma that there's a healing there. Yeah. For example, in our countries, like in Romania and so forth, if you get sick, you're not just sick there, and your relatives are going to give you some water or to cool your head or something, but you have a health system. So you get sick, but at the same time, you have the karma to be in a country with a health system and with top of the range medical support and so forth. Yeah. So similar here, yeah, somebody might be sick, which is the ripening of a negative karma, but might also have in the continuum a positive karma for healing. And so this can be activated by this dedication. Yeah?
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. Cool. Then yeah, I don't know. There is this video from the FPMT. I guess you're gonna watch this in the next session.
Yeah. And the discussion group.
Discussion group and so forth. Yeah, good. So I don't know what you would discuss about. Maybe you would discuss about, I don't know, what you would expect from a daily practice. Or what do you think about rejoicing? What do you think about confessing and stuff like this? Does that make any sense? Is that something that you find useful or could be useful and so forth? Something like that.
Yeah.
And apart from that, we would come together again in 2 weeks, no?
Yes.
So then I thought to talk about more about purification at that time, and maybe a little bit more karma and so forth. Yeah. So and then also maybe how to set up a meditation session. I was wondering actually, because you have been visited by many monks now, by Venerable Tenda, Venerable Gyaltsen, Venerable Gendun, and so forth. Did he already do with you people Vajrasattva, for example, or 35 Confession Buddhas or something like that?
No, this we didn't do.
Okay. But did he teach you like how to set up an altar? Or do you know this anyway, maybe? No?
Yes, we had a talk about it with Venerable Tendar.
Okay. Because that's something that would be part of doing a daily session. Normally they would tell you that you would clean the room, as I said, and set up some offerings and so forth. But I really wondered if this is not better to be done when somebody is actually there to show you how to set up an altar, rather than me kind of describing it in abstract here via Skype, right?
Yeah, right. This I can do myself to organize talk about it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Also, there is, I think, little booklets from the FPMT from Namasopa Rinpoche with details on that.
Also about the offering, the bowl.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Yeah.
So if there's nothing from your side, then that's it from my side. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Good.
Thank you so
Then
much.
see you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Take care.